Who is better, the LA Rams or the New Orleans Saints? Both of them have genius coaches and electric offenses. It's Mitch, the Bottom Line View here, and in this video I will break down each roster and by the end determine who I believe is the more talented team. Before I do get into it, let me know who you think is the better team, the Rams or the Saints. Also, Gronk, spike the like button and subscribe for more NFL. Let's kick it off with the quarterback position, and I have to give this one to the New Orleans Saints because Drew Brees is just more trustworthy than Jared Goff. We don't really know what we're going to get from Jared Goff on the road in his first road playoff game of his career. Remember, last season they played in LA, last week they played in LA. This is his first road playoff game, and Jared Goff has had some rough spots over the course of this season where he hasn't looked as great. He did look great against the Saints in the first matchup, so maybe that's going his way. As for Drew Brees, we know what we're going to get at home. We're going to get a precise, prepared, really intelligent quarterback who's always going to put his offense in the right play. The one thing that I am a little bit worried about Drew Brees recently has been his deep ball. It hasn't been as good. His arm strength hasn't been there recently on those deep balls. Look out for that, but I'm still giving the edge here to Drew Brees, a guy who was an MVP candidate for much of the season. At running back, I'm going with the LA Rams. I understand that the New Orleans Saints have a great combo in Alvin Kamara and Mark Ingram, but to me, the one that's playing better right now is Todd Gurley, and yes, CJ Fatboy Anderson. The Rams have found a backup and a nice running back to spell Todd Gurley. CJ Anderson has been an absolute animal. He's not going down without a fight, and he's looking for another Super Bowl trophy. He's been real nice in short yardage situations, and he's been given Gurley a nice rest on the sideline for him to come in and be even more efficient since Todd Gurley has been injured. Todd Gurley's back, he's healthy, he's ready to go, and Anderson does give him that extra breather for him to be a little bit more explosive when he does touch the football. And Gurley, we know what he can do. He's the best runner in this game. He's a great receiver. He's an all-around fantastic player, as is Alvin Kamara for the Saints. I love all these running backs in this game, and this is going to be a fascinating matchup. Maybe whoever can get the ground game going will win this game, but I'm giving the edge here to the team that's playing better at the moment on the ground, and that is the LA Rams. At wide receiver, I'm also going with the Rams. I understand Michael Thomas is the best receiver in this game, but when looking at the depth, I have to give it to the LA Rams. Brandon Cooks is one of the best in the NFL. He can draw a flag or two per game. He can make a big play or two per game. He's also very good in his routes, and he has a lot of chemistry with Jared Goff and has done really well in his first season for the Rams. When you look at Robert Woods, I've already discussed how I believe he's one of the more underrated wide receivers in the NFL because he's an all-around complete wide receiver, from route running as a slot receiver or an outside receiver, just catching those tough passes in traffic, or even stretching the field and going deep. Robert Woods can do all that. He's also an excellent run blocker. You throw in Reynolds, who's an okay number 3 receiver. Of course, Cooper Kupp isn't there anymore, but Reynolds has had some decent games here and there. Looking at the Saints, though, it's mostly Michael Thomas and only Michael Thomas. When we look at last week's game against the Eagles, yes, Kirkwood scored a touchdown, but other than that, nobody really stepped up to make a big play in that game. Ginn and Smith were underwhelming, and maybe they can come up in this game and make some plays. They definitely will have to, and I'm a little bit more comfortable with giving the edge to the Rams because they have better depth overall than just one elite receiver in the Saints and Michael Thomas. At the tight end position, I'm also going with the LA Rams. Now, if Ben Watson were to play, which it seems he's going to be inactive, he's in the hospital right now, so I hope he does get better, but Ben Watson doesn't look like he's going to be playing in this game, which means that the Saints are very limited in their tight end personnel. When looking at the Rams, they're not great at tight end either, but at least they have a little bit more depth. They have Everett, they have Higbee. These players are athletic. They can get the ball in space and run after the catch, and they can make a couple plays here and there when you need them to, but they're not exactly a big part of the offense. Overall, I'm going with the Rams here, but that's mostly because the Saints don't have a ton at the tight end position at the moment. Along the offensive line, I'm also going with the Rams because I believe the Rams offensive line is playing better football at the moment. When you look at the Saints offensive line, they were amazing earlier this year. Teron Armstead is the number 2 rated Pro Football Focus tackle in the NFL. Ramczyk is a Pro Bowl caliber player himself. Unger solid at center. Andrus Pete's one of my favorite guards in the NFL. But recently, they've been taken advantage of. You look at that Eagles game, and the Eagles really got a nice pass rush against Drew Brees in a number of big moments in that game. And they've been not as strong recently as a unit. They've also been really banged up and injured, so I think that might hurt them a little bit going into this game. Just the wear and tear of the season has been there more so than the Rams, a unit that last week pushed around one of the best front sevens in the NFL of the Dallas Cowboys. Whitworth is an all-pro caliber tackle. Saffold's a very underrated guard. And overall, their offensive line is playing really well as a unit in the run and the pass game. The offensive line position in this game is probably the most talented of any position in the NFC Championship. We go to the defensive line. I'm also going with the Rams. So the Rams have won 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 positions in a row, including the defensive line, because you can't go against Aaron Donald, Ndamukong Suh, and Michael Brockers. This is a very talented interior defensive line for the LA Rams, and they get a ton of pressure from Aaron Donald. He's a one-man wrecking crew. He is the defensive player of the year. He's arguably the best player in the NFL. Ndamukong Suh, in that playoff game last week against the Cowboys, really did have probably his best game of the season against the run. It was very disruptive, and he kind of knows how to turn it on for these moments. Brockers is a very capable player as well. Looking at the other side, they did take a big hit as Sheldon Rankins will not be playing in this game and is out for the rest of the season for the New Orleans Saints. Onimata is a pretty good player overall, and I do like him as a replacement for Rankins, but overall their depth, with Davison being the next guy up, isn't ideal. I just don't know about this area for the Saints. They have been superb at stopping the run this year, being the #1 team in giving up only 3.3 yards per carry, but still I am siding with the Rams because of what they can do as pass rushers. Going to the edge, I am siding with the Saints here for their first win in a while. The reason being is they have Cam Jordan, Okafor, and Davenport, a pretty good trio at getting after the quarterback. Looking at the Rams, Ebukam makes a couple plays here and there. He probably should have had a pick last game against the Dallas Cowboys. Longacre, he's kind of a rotation player. And Fowler is really the big name that everybody knows after being traded from the Jags, but he hasn't really had a ton of big moments for the Rams so far. Looking at that position, this is probably the weakest on the entire Rams roster. And looking at the Saints, they have one of their best players on their roster at this position in Cam Jordan, who can do it all at his position. Okafor is a very underrated player, and Davenport comes in on third down and can get after that quarterback as a young player. So I'm going to go with the Saints at the edge position. At linebacker, I'm also going with the Saints. I think the linebackers for the Saints are amongst the most underrated in the NFL, specifically Demario Davis, who's been a huge signing since the offseason for the Saints. He can do it all. He can cover running backs, tight ends, tackle, go side to side, and make plays. He's good in coverage, and overall, Davis has been a huge part of the Saints' success this season on defense. Anzalone is a pretty athletic linebacker, as is A.J. Klein. Both players are smart, fast, and their ability to move does give something to the Saints' defense. When looking at the Rams, Littleton has been pretty good, especially lately. He is on the smaller end, and when he's kind of swallowed in the run game, he doesn't really have much of a chance, and that's where I really don't like the Rams linebackers. Both him and Barron are small for the linebacker position, and against the run, they have been taken advantage of at times this season, but they're both very good in coverage and can make plays ranging across the middle of the field. At the safety position, I'm heading back to LA with the Rams. I really like the duo of Joyner and Johnson for the Rams. I think they're underrated. Joyner had a fantastic year this year, has brought that into this year. Not quite as good, but he's very good in man-to-man coverage. He's a little bit on the smaller end, but he does make plays. Johnson has probably been the better of the two this season. He's a little bit more versatile, and he can kind of do it all as a safety. Looking at the Saints, they have a pretty good trio of safeties in Coleman, Williams, and Bell, but I don't think they are overwhelmingly better in terms of depth than the Rams. And Coleman, yeah, he makes some plays in zone coverage, but he's not that great in man coverage. Williams, he is probably the best of the three overall, and Bell is mostly a run stuffer at the safety position. I'm going to go with the Rams here. I think that their two players are extremely underrated and one of the best duos in the NFL. At the cornerback position, the New Orleans Saints. Now, when you look at it, the LA Rams are probably more talented at the cornerback position. They have Aqib Talib, who was the 20th ranked Pro Football Focus corner this year. Marcus Peters is, of course, very talented and in his past made a ton of plays. Roby Coleman is a really good slot corner. And, of course, Troy Hill, who comes in and replaces Peters or Talib when they get injured on the outside. The Saints, Lattimore is the true stud here. And that's why I'm going with the Saints, because when you look at it, I think Lattimore is the real shutdown guy of both teams. Like, Talib isn't quite Denver Broncos Talib anymore. He's not quite shut down. Lattimore's been playing really, really well recently, and when he got his chance to go against Alshon Jeffrey last week, he made the most of it. Eli Apple is playing a lot better, and PJ Williams, he's okay. He makes some plays. He is the guy that most teams do take advantage of in the slot, and the Rams will be looking to do that, but he has made some plays this year. And looking at the Rams, they have been taken advantage of in the back end for whatever reason. I don't really know why that is. They are maybe a little bit too aggressive, and Marcus Peters specifically has given up a lot of big plays. So overall, I'm going with the team that has just performed better overall, and that's the Saints. Not necessarily the more talented group. At the kicker position, I am going with the LA Rams. And the reason being I'm going with the LA Rams, I understand that Will Lutz has been really good this year, and percentage-wise, he's been better than Greg the Leg. But I think a lot of that is due to the fact that it is in a dome. And then you're probably sitting there saying, well, Mitch, this game is in New Orleans, it's in a dome. But overall, I think Greg, he just has more range to hit a bigger kick. Like in that game earlier this year, he made a really, really big kick from 55 plus yards away. I think he just has more capability of hitting that 60-yarder that can win a game, more so than Lutz, who did miss a kick last week in the playoffs against the Eagles. Special teams wise, I'm also going with the LA Rams. Johnny Hekker is one of the best punters in the NFL, and John Fassel as a coach is really, really good and probably one of the best in the NFL as a special teams coach. So overall, the special teams edge and the kicker edge is going to the Rams. And at head coach, I'm going to give it slightly to the Saints. McVay is a fantastic coach and is kind of revolutionizing the way that you can use your personnel on offense. But overall, Sean Payton was McVay before McVay. And Sean Payton has more experience in these playoff situations. So in the third and fourth quarter, when you need a big play, I'm counting on Sean Payton to make that call overall. Overall, the more talented team in my estimation is the LA Rams. Does that mean they're going to win? Not exactly, but that does mean that I think they're the more overall talented roster. Let me know what you guys think in the comment section below. Do you think the Rams are more talented, or do you think the Saints are more talented? And it's Mitch of the Bottom Line View. Thanks for watching, and peace out.